Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet. We are back at it again with another amazing podcast. We are here during our pancreatic cancer fundraiser live stream podcast marathon, and we have our next guest joining us. We have Lydia Prettyman. How's it going today?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's not quite turned fall yet here, so I'm enjoying this weather any chance I get.
Yeah,
So, where
yeah.
I'm sure in the UK it's probably been fall for about a month already.
Yeah, it's weird though because it started to get cold. Manchester's quite cold anyway, like
Hmm.
most of the time, and tends to rain quite a bit, but it wasn't. I went out today and it wasn't as cold as I sort of thought it would be. So I
Okay.
feel like it's slow burner getting to the coldness of these months. But yeah, it's definitely colder now. Now we're sort of hitting November.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So you just dropped your new single.
Yeah.
How's everything been going with that? Or how's everything been going with that?
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, Ribcage was the last single I released. That was just over 2 months ago, and it's been going really well. It's been added to some good playlists and
Nice.
things, and streams wise, it's doing pretty well, and it's had a good reception from a lot of people. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's going, and it's also probably the most fun one to play
Hmm.
live. At least for me at the moment, I feel like that's kind of we usually end the set with it. So it's been like quite nice to finally have it out because
Hmm.
people that have seen me live know that one. So yeah, it's gone really well so far.
Nice. How long had it been in the works before you released it?
It's a good question. I can't really remember now. I think I started writing it when was it? Maybe like the start of the year. Kind of
Hmm.
all my songs start with just like voice notes on my phone, basically. So I'd kind of come up with like a verse, and yeah, and then we recorded it in I want to say April, but actually, to be honest, like this year's gone so quickly that I've
Right.
lost all concept of like when I did things. But yeah, I think it was around April, and that was like quite a quick turnaround because we
Hmm.
wanted it. We wanted to get it out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was sort of in the works for probably like 6 months, seven
Cool.
months before.
Yeah.
So yeah, bit of a long time coming for me.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really cool song. I definitely enjoy it. I've been listening to it for the last couple of weeks and whatnot ever since we first started talking on Instagram. And
Yeah.
it's so funny. Instagram is one of the funniest social media platforms because you
Yeah.
could have somebody kind of in your timeline, but not really know who it is. And then we started talking, and I was like, "Huh, this is very interesting." But
Yeah, honestly.
uh,
Yeah, the number of people I've sort of met on social media, and I feel like I am really close to them or close with them,
mhm,
but I've never met in real life.
right.
Um, so it's a weird platform, but I quite like that because um, you feel connected to other
Hmm.
people, especially in the music industry. You like I notice a lot of support I get from other musicians, and I've never met them before, but they really support everything I'm doing, and vice versa. Like we'll always just sort of hype each other up and promote each other's releases and things, and it's a really nice community. But yeah, it's bizarre how it happens
Yeah.
these days because yeah, you can get quite close with people.
Right, right, right. So for Ribcage, since that is your most recent release, what's kind of the story behind it? What's the song about?
So it's basically a bit of a love song. I I tend to start my songs. It's kind of a mix. Either I start with just a kind of random concept that I want to write about, or I have a very specific feeling that I'm going through,
Mm.
or something I want to sing about. And yeah, it's kind of either one of those. So the thing with Ribcage was it was the first one. It was like I kind of just started singing and seeing like what was coming out. And then it sort of did just turn into a bit of a love song. So it's all about kind of the feeling you get when you start to really like someone. You kind of obsess over them, but in a way I'd like to say is healthy, where you kind of just can't stop thinking about them. You feel like when you feel very secure with somebody, that feeling of them always being sort of with you even when you're on your own. So one of the lyrics in the chorus is on my own the silence leaves me unafraid because a part of you is nestling inside my ribcage, which is like, you know, in my heart,
Yeah.
in my chest, like you're within me type thing. So yeah, it's sort of a bit of a love song and feeling very like safe and secure and like content within a relationship, but also just really liking someone and it kind of going somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with this single, are you building towards a bigger project? Because I noticed on your Spotify, it looks like you're doing like a waterfall release or whatever it is they call it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I well, I can't really say, but
Okay.
yeah, it will be it's all sort of accumulating
Hmm.
um to something exciting
Okay. Okay.
next year. So but yeah, it's sort of partnered with my earlier release Craft, which I
Mm.
released in January. That yeah, they're kind of all coming together.
Nice, nice. I had to ask because I picked up on that and I was just like, at first I
Yeah.
thought you did like an A-B single type release,
Yeah.
and then I realized Craft
Yeah.
was released like way earlier.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's a great way to do it for musicians,
Mm.
especially when you're independent, because if a lot of people are finding your music as you're going along and you're sort of building your listeners and building your like fan base, I guess,
Mhm.
if anyone just discovered Ribcage now, they kind of would automatically then listen to hopefully my
Mhm.
last single Craft, because it's when you release them together, it kind of allows like new listeners to kind of find older releases. So it's quite a nice way to do it. And also, um, I just quite liked releasing them together because then, you know, it's part of something quite cool. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a good way to do it. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of ways to release music nowadays, and I don't think there's ever really a bad way to do it. You know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. There are so many different ways you can do it. And I think that's something I sometimes find hard being independent, because you don't really know the right way to do it. You just
Hmm.
take maybe inspiration from what other artists are doing, or artists that have a label or a backing behind them, and you see, right, what are they doing, and like, should I do that, or is that going to work for me? Or you know, you can kind of be quite creative with it, but you also have to be
Hmm.
quite smart with it and think what's going to be the most effective way to release these songs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, um, so with all that being said, obviously, Ribcage is out now. People can
Yeah.
listen to it. It's up on Spotify,
Yeah.
paired up with Craft. Um, what's Where'd you kind of get your start? Obviously, you're based out of Manchester, but you
Yeah.
just recently moved to Manchester.
Yeah, well, I moved here just under 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So yeah, but before that, I've sort of been in a few different places. So as I said, I grew up in Bedfordshire, so north sort of London,
Hmm.
and then I went to Nottingham for uni, so like Midlands, and then I did 4 years there, moved back home to Bedfordshire for about, I think it was like a year and a half, and
Hmm.
then moved to Manchester. So I've
Gotcha.
kind of done a bit, but yeah, sort of see myself now staying in the Northwest for a little like for a long while still.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but yeah, it's a great place. I really love it up here.
Nice. That's cool. Is How's the scene in Manchester?
Yeah, the music scene in Manchester is really great. It's very kind of open. Like there's a big music community, and I think when I moved to Manchester, I didn't know anybody. I knew maybe like two people, and I started playing open mics around the city, and just made such a great community, or like met a great community of musicians who were so welcoming, and then it was nice because it's a big city, but it's small enough that you kind of get to know everyone. Like you
Hmm.
recognize faces at open mics.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you really kind of build this like sense of familiarity. And I'd only been there like I don't know 2 months or something, so
Yeah.
it was great. And yeah, so in terms of like playing music, it's great, but then in terms of going to gigs and things, there are so many venues, and they've um, got sort of every kind of capacity. So you can get like a 60 capacity venue, and then you've got all the way up to like Co-op Live, which is a new arena, which is like 23,500
Oh
capacity.
wow.
So it's like any artist that's touring is probably going to be playing in Manchester, and it's so accessible. Like sometimes, I mean, I've found now tickets are getting quite expensive, but if you find like your favorite artist playing at like the smaller venues, or maybe a smaller artist playing there, it's great. It's like just super easy, and I love going to gigs, so
Yeah.
it's a great place to sort of go and see all the musicians that you like.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like a community like that where when you have somebody new there, you kind of notice. It's like, oh, somebody's
Mm,
new is here. Whereas if you were to
yeah,
be in like London or something, if somebody
yeah,
new shows up, it's like, okay,
yeah.
cool, you know?
Yeah, no, honestly, and I think because I'd considered moving to London, but firstly, it's just quite expensive. Like London these days is a really expensive place
Hmm.
to live, and I think what I liked about Manchester was that it was smaller and you could
Hmm.
build this kind of, I mean, I didn't realize it really before I moved, but I would then be in part of this community, which was constantly growing. It's like if a new person comes to an open mic, you're like, oh, I've not seen them before. I want to get to know them, and I want to, hear more of their stuff and support them and follow them. And I really felt that. Like as soon as I started playing open mics, everyone was like super welcoming. Whereas sometimes I mean, I don't know because I like from experience because I've not lived there, but being in London, I think sometimes you might feel like you're in this massive, what's the saying, like small fish in a big pond type thing,
Yep,
like
there you
just
go. Yeah.
too many, like, it's just really overwhelming. But I never really had that sense of overwhelmingness here because everyone was so um just welcoming and supportive. So yeah, it's been great so far. And it's also allowed me to kind of build build my confidence and grow my confidence because you have people that, like, I'd sometimes get messages being like, oh, I want to go to this open mic tonight, are you coming? Like I can give you a lift, or I can, we can go together. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm with people that sort of want me there and I want to see them. And I don't know, it's just really nice.
That's cool. Now, would you say the move to Manchester was kind of the jumping off point for you taking music, I guess, seriously or as a profession?
um I'd say so, yeah. I mean, I was taking it quite seriously, I guess, when I moved home after uni,
Mm.
because my sort of timeline was in terms of seeing it as something I might do as a career,
Yeah.
and it be feasible,
Hmm.
was when I was in my fourth year at uni. I started doing open mics, and then I moved back home and I was like, right, okay, I'm in this little village. So it's not loads of music stuff going on, but I recorded 2 songs in that year, and so like in the studio, and I'm released those. And then I was sort of starting to take it seriously, but it's quite hard to really immerse yourself in it when you're in that sort of environment because
Hmm.
you're not like surrounded by creativity. And like, don't get me wrong, like I love being at home, but you feel a little bit restricted maybe.
Hmm.
So then I moved to Manchester, and I thought, if I make this move, I have to take it seriously because now I'm like paying rent and I'm having to find a job that
Yeah.
I can afford to like live and pay for music. So I'd say that for me was, if I don't move now and if I don't kind of just throw myself into it, I don't know if I will have that opportunity to, or I
Hmm.
don't know if I'll ever feel comfortable enough to do that. So it was a big jump. I sort of never really felt certain about doing it until I did it. I was like, I think I need to do this. And then I did it. And
Yeah.
it was definitely the right move. So yeah, definitely sort of the last 2 years was when I was like, this, I have to put everything into this now um because I've moved here. So
Fair. You kind of all in at this point, and it's like
yeah,
got to make it work.
exactly.
So was it Picture Frames and Hang Your Coat Back Up? Were those the two songs that you recorded before you came to
That's
Manchester?
right. Yeah. Picture Frames was the first song that I released. It was also pretty much the first, well, it was the first like demo,
Hmm.
anything that I'd made. And it felt only right for it to be the first release. I think that
Hmm.
was where my sound felt really comfortable at the time. It's a little bit different now, but not like crazy
Yeah.
different. But yeah, it kind of felt like the most sort of perfect first release. And then yeah, Hang Your Coat Back Up was a little bit after that.
Nice, nice. When you were kind of trying to figure out your sound, who were you listening to, or what were you kind of thinking
Ooh.
in that process?
Um, I always find this question really hard, just in general, like with any inspiration and things. But I, a lot of my music journey with wanting to sort of create music started with a lot of like jazz, soul, like R&B
Hmm.
musicians. So I was
Yeah.
listening to a lot of Eloise, Mac Ayres, sort of like this very soully kind of feel. And
Hmm.
then I think I also just wanted to get some feel like there were some older influences in it as well. So I've always liked a lot of like Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, like those sort of artists. And they didn't directly influence the tracks, but I think subconsciously I was sort of thinking of the way that they tell stories and that they kind of uh, come up with like vocal melodies and things and trying to sort of think about that whilst
Yeah.
I was writing them. Um, but yeah, I was also listening to a lot of like Bruno Major and artists like that. So more like modern, I guess. But it's definitely changed now that I've kind of written more and
Mm.
recorded more. But I think it sort of started with those sorts of artists.
Nice. That's really cool. It's always really interesting to kind of see that travel from
Yeah.
beginning to where you're at now. And, obviously your influences initially can change, and just kind of seeing where you've grown and where you're going is always kind of a really cool kind of process to look
Yeah.
at. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
and when you said that it's changed a little bit, are you thinking like are you referring to like your lyrics and whatnot are a little bit more matured, or are you thinking like all across the board things have changed?
I think overall things have changed. I
Hmm.
think the way I write songs now is different, but that's
Hmm.
also because writing comes with confidence and feeling, especially if you're writing, from personal experience or kind of from the heart, like you need the confidence to be able to put that into a song. And I think the more I've written, the more I've kind of grown as an artist and grown independently. That's definitely shifted. And I think now it's a couple years on from those songs. I listen to a lot more music now. I also listen to a lot more like female musicians my
Hmm.
age, and I kind of like to hear what everyone else is doing and what's doing well. And although you don't need to replicate that, it's interesting, and you might think, right, I really love that song that that artist just released, and I want to write a similar, I don't know, a similar sort of chorus or a hook, or I love how the drums sort of sound like this in the chorus, and you like take little bits of inspiration, which has been something that I've sort of done more now that I've made more music, because
Hmm.
you have a greater understanding of how the songs are made, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
when you're very new to it, you don't necessarily understand, but maybe, I mean, for me anyway, I didn't necessarily understand kind of what each part was doing and why it would sound like this in the chorus,
Mm.
or what effect was on the guitar, or so as you kind of get more experienced with making demos and recording and writing, I think that sort of shift in your own music can kind
Hmm.
of come through a little bit. So yeah, it was definitely a mix, and so like an accumulation of everything.
Right, right, right. So is it fair to say that the move to Manchester has a lot to do with you gaining your confidence?
Yeah, I would say so. I
Okay.
think looking back to who I was, sort of, that sounds really dramatic, but looking at the type of person I was sort of like 3 years ago,
Hmm.
I would be like shocked if that person saw me now, I think, because I'd say I'm just so much more like extroverted and confident. But I think I've had this conversation with a few people and I've said, I think that shift in personality or kind of how you present yourself almost, I didn't realize it kind of just came naturally from putting myself out there and like
Hmm.
almost forcing myself to meet new people and connect with new people. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but also performing on stage or kind of like the way that the confidence that you have when you're
Hmm.
even just making TikToks or like
Right.
making social media content, like it it's definitely changed who I am as a person and a musician. But I think it's all kind of been for the best because I
Mm.
wouldn't be sort of half as confident to be putting out my music or promoting it or, you know, playing gigs if I
Hmm.
if I hadn't like come to Manchester and really put myself outside of that comfort zone.
Nice, nice. You'd mentioned a little bit ago that you're listening to a lot more music. Who are you listening to right now that's like
Oh,
maybe a little bit more on the independent level that's really got your ear?
independent level.
Or just or in general, whatever. Yeah.
Well, at the moment, my kind of on repeat artists are Lizzie McAlpine. I saw her, she played in Manchester last week and
Hmm.
it was amazing. And I've listened to a lot of her, been listening to a lot of Nivella. I've been listening to a lot of Billy Martin, who I love anyway. I just really love her music. And a lot of Matilda Mann as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of sort of female musicians, which is nice. I take a lot of like um inspiration and almost like admiration. I
Hmm.
really admire them because I'm like, that could be me.
Right. That's really cool. I love that. So looking forward, you'd mentioned that there may or may not be something more coming in the next few months.
Yeah.
Um, but where are you kind of at show wise right now? Are you playing pretty consistently or are you a little bit more sparse with shows?
Yeah, so well, I haven't played a gig with my band
Hmm.
since June. I've played a couple of solo ones. I played one in Nottingham, one in Manchester last month. But I've got, because I was kind of so focused on the Ribcage release and
Hmm.
the upcoming things, I sort of took a little step back, and now that things are sort of pretty finalized. I've now got three full band gigs this month, all in Manchester, which is great. And then I've got another full band gig in Manchester again on the 24th of January. So I've got like my first gig of the new year, which is always quite reassuring.
Nice.
You're like, cool, I'm setting it up well. Um, so yeah, we're kind of now focusing quite heavily on playing live, especially with like Ribcage out and sort of where we want to be moving in the new year, like what we're going to be doing. We just want to be like playing live and meeting as many people as possible and sort of just hopefully getting as much like exposure as possible and really connecting with other musicians.
That's really cool. I love it. So I don't want to keep you here too much longer, but with everything with or thinking outside of music, what do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies when you need to like decompress or anything like
Ooh.
that?
Um, oh, that's tricky. I think, well, recently, this is a very new hobby, but I started for my music page. like journaling, because I've
Mm,
sort of been doing these journal entries, which are almost like a newsletter, but it's kind of like a new, like a different approach to it, just being
mhm.
like imagining it was a journal. And we had a sort of arts and crafts day of just writing it and scrapbooking and making lots of things. And they are music related, but I really enjoyed that. I found it so relaxing. So I think like scrapbooking and just doodling and journaling and all of that is something that's definitely kind of become a bit of a hobby now, which is nice because it's also work, but like
Mm.
it is a hobby as well. Um, and then I don't know, I don't know if it's a hobby, but just I've been really enjoying like this weekend just kind of exploring the city a bit more. Like there are so many hidden little villages and places out just outside the city centre, and I think they're so easy to get to. So we've just been getting trams and like going on long walks and finding little coffee shops and things, and that for me is sometimes when I'm so busy in Manchester and I'm working and then I'm doing my music as well. I kind of realized that although I'm living here, I'm not experiencing everything that's here outside of like music. So
Yeah.
I think just doing that and like meeting new people, meeting up with friends, reconnecting with old friends, that sort of thing, like definitely has been, I guess, a hobby that I've been trying to focus on to really like make the most of living here. Um, so yeah, they're kind of been the main ones, I guess.
Nice. I feel like that's just getting out into your own city and kind of learning a little bit more about it or
Mm.
exploring it, because I definitely have that fault where I if when I do go out, I go out to the same places. I don't really go out
Yeah.
to anywhere new. And I had a buddy ask me the other day, it's like, "Hey, I'm going over to this place. You want to join me?" I was like, "I have no idea where that's at." He's like, "It's 2 minutes down the street from you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because it was the opposite way that I normally go. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's nice. And I think like our friend from work told me recently that there's this new Italian restaurant like opening
It's,
like 10 minutes away from me, and I
mhm,
was like, oh no way. So yeah, that sort of thing. Or when you just take a different route and then you find a
mm,
little hidden pub or a hidden like restaurant or coffee shop or
yeah,
something, it's like, oh my gosh, this has been here the whole time. I didn't even
right.
know. So yeah, there's something really enjoyable about that, I think. Because it's just nice to discover new things. And even though I've been
Mhm.
here for 2 years, there's still like so many places I want to go to. And it's everything sort of like just a little train ride away or a tram away or a bus. So it's really
Yeah.
easy.
Nice. That's really cool. It I agree with it. It's just one of those things where it's like sometimes you just gotta be willing to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to sometimes force yourself to do it, and to just generally speaking with lots of things like just put your all into it and throw yourself into it, because you never know like what's going to happen. You never know
Mhm.
sort of where it's going to get you or who you're going to meet. And it's also just enjoyable because it's fun
Yeah.
to sort of explore and like really just find different places and yeah, throw yourself into different things.
Nice. Yeah, 100%. 100%. So if anybody wants to check out Ribcage, Craft, or any of your other music or shows or social medias, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
So I'm on Instagram. I'm on all socials pretty much, but yeah, Instagram and my TikTok are at Lydia Prettyman Music. I'm on Twitter or X as well, and Facebook. So yeah, but Instagram's probably the best bet because I'm most active on there.
I think that's where a lot of people are right now. It's just
Yeah.
it's like I try and be good on Facebook and TikTok, but I had somebody that was left unread on TikTok for about 3 weeks because I just don't check my messages on TikTok. So,
Yeah, TikTok's a dangerous one because if I go on there for sort of work and I'm trying to
mhm.
post content or promotional stuff, I end up just scrolling for hours and hours, and it's really hard to get a balance. Whereas on Instagram, I
Yep,
find it a lot easier to like cut it off and just say,
cut it
right,
off.
I've,
Yep.
I've done my work now. I've posted that, or I've, replied to that person. Now I can like detach from social
Mhm.
media for a
Oh yeah, for sure. For
bit.
sure. 100%. I agree. Um, but once again, I really do appreciate your time. It's been an absolute blast chatting with you, and
Oh,
hopefully we'll get to sit down and do it again.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, if anybody wants to check out Ribcage by Lydia Prettyman, we will have the link in the description below, all that fun stuff. So feel free to check it out. And once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back here in a little bit.